I've already spoken, giving praise and warmth and nice wishes and good thoughts for Barak and the work that he has already done, leaning in, all in, focused, and it's now time for him to have the opportunity to engage with all of us here to deepen his thinking with you about the ways we will be successful moving forward. So Barak, it's a pleasure. Welcome to 520 8th Avenue.
Hey everybody, can you hear me fine? It sounds like you can. First of all, it's really great to be here. Every time I walk in, I'm still having like flashbacks of 30 years of these offices and sitting in this room, listening to Alan about statement of principles and listening to the board execs at that time and those that served on the board before you and those of you that are still here. So for those of you still here, do I look taller? I mean, I look shorter. I had more. So first of all, just my expression of gratitude. I think as Jewish organizations, we must always celebrate joy, and gratitude is a core part of our organizational DNA. As I like to remind myself, and I think I said some of this stuff in January, that every day I still believe in the learnings of Abraham Joshua Heschel, that every day we wake up in radical amusement, that we're on this earth to do good work, to live Torah, and to make the world a better place. And I just want to express to David what an incredible partner David's been, helping me to onboard into this role. It's definitely been a very busy 5-6 months. To Lisi, how much fun are we going to have? And when I said to people, buckle up, who better than to buckle up than with Lisi, who's ready to go? And if that buckling up sounds fast and exhilarating, it's going to be, as you already see things that are happening today. My appreciation to Gary still and the search committee, and thank you, and to the past chairs in this room who I've had time to meet with, to the board executives who have already become really strategic thought partners for me, each in their own way. A special shout out to my friend Jonathan for even helping me to pull thoughts out of my head when I was getting overwhelmed between multiple communities at one time, and Jonathan helped me to simplify things, and I want to thank him for that. And there's so many other people, but I also want to just acknowledge very quickly the senior management team here of JCC Association. If we want JCCs to be seen, we need to make sure our staff are seen for their incredible hard work and shepherding. This has not been an easy last year for them. The uncertainty of leadership, who their executive visionary will be, and but that team led by Jen has kept this organization going, and we'll talk more about Jen later, but you can already tell the relationship I have with Jen and my admiration and respect for especially the external work that she has done across this country, holding on to funder relationships, international Jewish relationships. So Jen, kol hakavod. But to Michael Feinstein, who Michael and I sat on this board, sat on finance committees together, to see Michael and have Michael's thought partnership and trust right now is really, really important to me. But to also Carrie Darsky, who's working with me on talent strategy, to Joanne, who does production, to Sam Cohn, who is a beacon of light in the world of Jewish peoplehood. Everyone I speak to says, watch out for that Sam Cohn. To Rabbi David Kessel, who has been already a thought partner to me, helping me to think through his time at JFNA and Hillel about how we reimagine an organization. And I also want to acknowledge Annette McCann. If you're in the development this morning, you can feel her infectious energy. Gabe Most for incredible behind the scenes work. But there are other people in the room that have also made magic happen this past year. Randy Luderman continuing to work with our board and do all the other grants work that she does. Mark Young on talent and getting us ready for ProCon. Marcy Meltzer, who some of you might not know. Is Marcy in the room? Well, if you meet Marcy, she's really playing lead on the 520 renovations. I also see Hindi Coleman in the room, our conference coordinator, and Miriam Lezowatsky, Morgan Weiss, I just want to say that at the end of the day, I will love this board, but I will love the staff more. Because they are the ones getting up every day. Every single day I learned in my 30 years, it's those people getting up every day with the weight of responsibility. So can those staff please rise and we give them a big thank you. Thank you. And as I acknowledge, some of our lay leadership, I'm a big believer that our work fundamentally is about kol aravim zeh lazeh, that we're all responsible for each other. And that's not that we're just responsible for our continental movement. We're responsible to make sure that JCCs across North America feel connected to the global Jewish world. And who better to have my dear friend leading JCC Global than Smadar Barak Hermann? And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the time I've already spent with my very, very dear friend Leah Garber and the work that she does to make us feel connected to the Matnasim in Israel. And also, as I acknowledge leadership, just to have Monica Kibrit here, the chair of the board of JCC Global, and Sheila Lambert, the president. Just know from my vantage point, you know that I'm a JCC Global groupie, and we were just in Budapest together, but keeping our Jewish eco-worlds connected to each other and feeling that something that doesn't happen good in the Ukraine is felt by Jews here. And when there's a tragedy in a Jewish community here, it's felt over there in Israel. So we need to make sure that we are not just telling the narrative of our JCCs of North America, we are telling a narrative of a Jewish world that has ultimate responsible for each other. Now you can imagine, I'm thinking about a lot of things these days, and I was sitting here and I was actually just thinking for a moment about the value of Zachor, which is the value of remembrance. What a period we're in right now. We understand fundamentally how important it is to remember our past and from where we've come. Just the rhythm of the Jewish calendar right now is putting us in a big place of remembrance. We just had Passover, right? We sat at a Seder. Hopefully they were joyous and fun, but it's remembering from slavery to redemption. We had Yom HaZikaron to remember those that have defended Israel's borders and lost their lives. We had Yom HaShoah. It helps us to never forget the complete audacity of what happened in Europe to our people, 6 million plus millions of others, innocent people that tried to protect us. We had Yom Ha'atzmaut to remember about the birth and the importance of the state of Israel. But just think about where we are in the Torah portion right now, right? We had Passover, and 2 weeks from today, we're going to accept the Torah on Shavuot. And why did God give us the Torah? Because he was pretty pissed off at the world. People were bowing down to idols. He wanted there to be one God. He wanted ethical behavior, moral behavior. He wanted us to be a chosen people and gave us the gift of Israel. So right now we're in that period of wandering through the desert to get to Israel, right? And then we're going to accept the Torah next 2 weeks from today on Shavuot. And God instructed Moses and Aaron to build like a tabernacle, the Raiders of the Lost Ark, to protect that 10 Commandments. But he said, who's going to build it? And it's my favorite biblical character, Bezalel, who he said, you're an artisan. Build us something beautiful that will protect these 10 Commandments. And even though Bezalel was a one-man wonder and can do a lot of stuff on his own, he said, I'm not going to do it on my own. I want everyone to bring their gifts at this moment to build something so special. So I am not Bezalel. I do like the word. But that each of you will bring your gifts at this time to build a new home that will guard this modern day gift that we've been given, which is the Torah. But we then land in Israel. But unlike Moses, I do want to enter and be with all of you on this journey, but that Israel was given to us as an example to the world of how people should live ethically and live morally, and we had all these rituals. And I've always felt for 30 years that JCCs are just microcosms of that. That we stand for a place that can really ensure achdut, Jewish unity, without looking for uniformity. And our ability, especially in 2025, to accept the demographics of today is massively important to all of us. So I wanted to give just a moment, if you think about the journey of the holidays, just a little historical context about JCC Association. I love the history of this organization. Its roots date back to the 1840s and 50s with the German Jewish immigrants. I thought everybody landed at Ellis Island. It's not true, because there were other port cities, and that's where the first JCC that I've been honored to lead for the last 13 years was built, the Baltimore JCCs in 1854. Followed, I think, by the 92nd Street Y in the 1870s. But these early institutions were created to truly live that responsibility of us being responsible for each other, because we were helping Jewish immigrants acculturate into American society. We were trying to create safe spaces as people came off the boats to create Jewish neighborhoods for recreation and socialization, to preserve Jewish identity. And then that growth expanded in the 1880s to 1920s with YMHAs and YWHAs spreading across the country, modeling themselves off the YMCA movement. Sometimes I have colleagues say to me, is a Y and a J the same thing? Well, the Jewish Y is the same thing. Because why do we call ourselves Jewish community centers? Well, I don't know how many of you introduce yourself as a Hebrew. When someone says what you are, I'm a Hebrew. So why would our movement be called the YMHA versus the Jewish community centers? But some JCCs held on to that Y because of branding. I was at the Suffolk Y when this was introduced, and we compromised with the association, called ourselves the Suffolk Y JCC. But the 92nd Street Y is part of this family. Every Y is, and every J. But that expansion really became the essence of Jewish neighborhoods across North America. And in 1917, the JWB, the JCC Association, was formed with the #1 responsibility to help those Jewish coming back from World War I to acculturate back into their Jewish communities. That evolved today, over 120 years later, to be the responsibility of JCCs of North America. But our history is really rooted in the American Jewish story. Just as the story is changing, we need to change. Now we're in the mid-20th century. I'm sorry, we're in the 21st century, but in the 20th century, centers started to move from urban areas to suburbs. Why? Jews were doing better economically. They could move away from the harbor ports into their communities, and JCCs became community hubs for both Jews and the larger society. That mission throughout history, and what we're ultimately trying to guard and help every JCC to be, is community building, Jewish continuity, inclusivity, cultural enrichment, health and wellness, and social responsibility. Nothing has changed when we go back to our core mission of why this movement was formed. But now we need to modernize. We need to be really relevant. And I want to just say to you the trust and responsibility that I feel. In 2015, I was proud to be in the first class as a fellow with the Schusterman Foundation. They said they were, at that time, investing in about 40 people across, I think, 10 different countries, who they felt could think differently and bigger about Jewish life. They did not really care about the organization. They cared about us as individuals, said, one day you might get called upon. Well, here I am 10 years later. But when I was a Schusterman Fellow, we took a tour in DC, and we went through the FDR. Has anyone been to the FDR Memorial? All the quotes. And I swear that there was a quote that has always embodied my leadership that I saw that day. And I remember looking at this quote, and the words started moving. And it said that FDR said he never forgets he lives in an American house owned by the American people, and that they're trusting him with it. And I really want to assure you that I am never going to forget that I work inside a JCC Association owned by the JCCs of North America, not by us, by the field, for the field, and that you're trusting me with it. And that means fiduciary responsibility, that means strategy, it means ethics and morals, that the same thing we expect from society, we should expect within our own organization. In this 21st century evolution of Jewish life, my family is living what I call the modern Jewish family, the new American Jewish family. If you know what I'm talking about, you're right. If it's interfaith, LGBTQ, mixed heritages, Jews of color, my family embodies all of it. Some people will say to me, when you find out that 2 of my kids are dating non-Jewish people, they go, do you feel like you failed? I said, absolutely not. They have the foundation of Israel pride, a commitment to Zionism, a commitment to Jewish holidays, And I have to recognize that 7 out of 10 families walking to a JCC likely have one set of grandparents that aren't Jewish. The days are over, folks, for us to walk into Federation meetings and hide the fact that we're serving the larger community. Those communities that are celebrating that work of working with the larger community, I will assure you that is our ultimate antidote to combat Jewish hatred, is making sure that that family has not experienced Jewish family, sees the richness of our values and culture, and who knows, maybe some will join us. But today, our role is evolving with 70% intermarriage, Jews of color who are mobilizing on their own because they are not seen feeling visible, welcome, and engaged. We might need to consider even the look and feel of our boardroom. Does it really represent North American Jewry today? If people don't see themselves, why would they want to be engaged? There are various ways to identify as Jewish. I came from the New York area. I thought Orthodox people were one group. And then I went to Baltimore, and it's like Baskin and Robbins. There's like 31 flavors of being religious Jew, okay? And so that we don't just look at each other for what we see, that we try to unpack each person's story of how they're living Jewishly. May I say, if I stay on the ice cream metaphor for a moment, I'm more of a Cold Steam Creamery guy. Right? Right? So you got 31 flavors of Orthodox, but today you got a slop of this, a slop of that. You mix it all together, and we call them a Jew. Right? Our families are mixed. Right? They have different, they're not all going to look Ashkenazi. We're not going to get all grandchildren that look like our Eastern European relatives. They're going to be a mixture of different cultures and races. And we celebrate that in Israel, but we don't always celebrate that here. So let's make sure that our work and our photography and our marketing and our storytelling represents the Jewish community today. I also want to, before I tell you where my framework is going, I want to talk to you about benchmarking, not as a system, but what the data is telling us today. We spend a lot of money creating benchmarking. As someone who's used it every year since its inception, think about some of these statistics. We had 30,000 JCC users every cycle. That might be one of the largest recurring samples of Jewish life in North America. How do we leverage that data and make it part of our fundraising efforts? Listen to these numbers. The Jewish participants, 40% of Jews say that do not belong to a synagogue, that JCC is their primary connection to Jewish life. 4 out of 10 people that do not belong to a synagogue say because of the JCC, they feel connected to community. 42% feel more connected to their local Jewish community because of the JCC. They feel part of a sense of unity. And I'm very proud to say that's 66% in Baltimore based on benchmarking, because we're trying to constantly make sure that Jews feel connected to each other. 32% feel more connected to Israel and Jews worldwide because of their JCCs. 27% say that JCCs help them build friendships with Jews of different backgrounds. Think about that 1.5 million, 27% of them, over 400,000 people feel because of our work. And I think that data can be scrubbed because it probably is even higher. But in a post-10/7 reality, as we pray for the hostages to be released and for Israel's safety on its borders, JCCs are playing a critical role again in building Jewish unity and resilience. 45% of people that do not identify as Jewish say that the JCC helped them recognize shared values with Judaism. Well, if that's not going to combat anti-Semitism, what will? 37% report making more Jewish friends because of the JCC. And if I had time, I could tell you a lot of stories and maybe even some stand-up comedy about the number of non-Jews who have no problems with mitzvahs and this and all the stories I hear in the hallways because of those Jewish relationships. They have been to our simchas, they've been to our mitzvahs, they've been to our funerals, they've seen how we do weddings, and I've never seen someone not Jewish say, I love the way the Jewish people show up. JCCs are a powerful platform for interfaith work. So now as I look into the future, I say, okay, this is a pretty big responsibility I'm being asked to do, and I am honored to do it. And I told you that I'm honored with that trust. But I'm excited to share with you a framework that will guide our work and hopefully strengthen our movement in the years ahead. And I shouldn't even say hopefully, because hopefully is not a good business strategy. Okay, so let me get the word hope out of my language. Some of my colleagues thought I was nuts. They said, enjoy your last 6 months in Baltimore. We'll give you 6 months on the stakeholder. We trust you. It was very nice and warm. But how do I get on a call on May 1st and say, just trust me, give me 6 months, and not give them a framework of what's to come, right? That's like saying to a donor, give me the money, and we'll show you what happens. That's not the way we're going to show up. And I said to my colleagues, I need to give you a framework. They're like, but you haven't even done your listening tour. And my friend Mark Shapiro says, you've been listening for 31 years, right? There's no listening tour. It doesn't mean that I don't believe deeply in the value of listening, which I do, but there's no need for me to go on a listening tour right now. It's time to buckle down and do some heavy lifting and do it with great transparency and work. So I'm going to start this framework right now. But as you hear the framework, think about these questions. What resonates for you? What might concern you? What do you like about it? What might you want me to tweak? Right now, this is my thinking. It is not endorsed by this association. Is that fair? We have a mission. This mission, I think, needs to be, like anything, looked at and evaluated. Does it best represent the work? But that's our mission today. This is our modus operandi of why we exist. We connect the movement and enrich North American Jewish life. I think it can be bigger, and I think it can be a lot more inspiring. I think we do a lot more than enriching North American Jewish life, but more to come. The next slide, oh, I have a, but, oh, you can work with me? Great, awesome. Joanne, thank you. This is an aspiration, okay? That through 3 centers of excellence, JCC Association will serve as a trusted partner to JCCs, funders, and strategic allies across the Jewish world. I like 3s. You'll hear that a lot. I have 3 kids, you know, but I often say I have 3 buckets, I have 3 questions, I have 3 thoughts. Actually, I was taught that by my dear friend Robin Brous, who is the associate executive in JCC of Central. When I used to drop off my 3rd child at preschool, the 3rd one crying, holding me on my leg, he would say, well, I have more questions. He wanted to know what time I was coming home. Was I taking him home? And Robin said, Jonah, you get 3 questions every morning. And so then they would strip him off my leg, and they would call me in the office and told me that he wasn't crying anymore. I said, did I seem like I cared? It's a 3rd child. Like, just, I'm in a meeting already, you know? So everything for me is 3. For those of you that are management junkies, 3 is it's a memorable way of framing our work. But we fundamentally, as a JCC movement, are going to talk about our work in 3 buckets. Talent, both lay and pro, Jewish peoplehood, and innovation and impact. So when people say, what does JCC Association do? We do talent development for the Jewish world. We do Jewish peoplehood. We make sure that people feel connected to each other and feel responsible for each other. And we do that through really bold innovation and impact. And by do that, we will unite communities through meaningful engagement. So here, let's go to the next slide. Here's our imperative in the next 4 years. We need to reimagine the way we work with advancing JCCs and JCC camps of North America. I want to thank Bill Kaplan, a fellow board member and a good friend, who, him and I didn't know each other really well, both 30-year guys on 2 sides of the country, but only through this association have we formed a relationship. And Bill and I have talked deeply how we need to show up as JCC camps in North America as the largest camping platform, that Ramah camps talk that way, URJ camps, and we talk as like 25 individual brands. So we're going to think about how we talk as JCC camps in North America and make sure that we are being seen on that national stage that way. And obviously our work is to advance every JCC to be the most successful in their community. And we need to strengthen our capacity. Thank you for Jay for teeing that up. Michael demonstrating the current capacity of this organization is nowhere in line with the way we need to show up in the larger world. Obviously, from making sure that everybody's in the right seats on the bus, who's missing from the bus, are they in the right seats, if you get the good to great jargon from Jim Collins. But we need to make sure that there's more seats being created with the right people, that both JCCs and the national world, the whole eco world, both Jewish and secular, look at us and say, I want to partner with those guys. And so we have an amazing team already. How do we strengthen them? They need more support. So here it is. This is what I've been thinking about for a long time. I want to advance the field in 3 centers of excellence. Think of it, for those of you, are any of you on university boards at a local university? Tom? Think of it as a university with 3 colleges, right? You have a university and you have 3 colleges. Each college has a specific area. It could be a school of business, a school of education. That we run this organization under 3 centers: Center for Talent Development, Center for Jewish Peoplehood, and Center for Innovation Impact. And I'll tell you a little bit more in a moment what they are. But just think about our governance being governed that way. Think about all of you as board members coming to a board meeting and maybe the next day saying, I'm really in the peoplehood stuff. Could we have micro board meetings for each of those areas? That each of you have so many gifts to bring, but it's so huge to think about how I add value. Could you say, you know what, I'm really into talent development, that's where I want to lend my gifts at this time. So you can imagine how this might affect our governance thinking, and also how it will, I think, affect my thinking about staffing and where we invest. Jay, Michael, I think you'll appreciate measuring each center for its financial performance and its investment and what it provides, to the association. And so I believe that this framework can help us to really simplify our messaging. And I will tell you, even talking to some national funders, I like to call them the Power 5, if it's Jim Joseph or the Weinberg Foundation or Schusterman, they have found this so far to be very, very clear. So if they do peoplehood, they want to invest in peoplehood. If they do talent, they can do talent. But I feel that this might be able to amplify our communication strategy. So we talk about ourselves very simply. What is JCCA focusing on? Talent, peoplehood, and innovation. Why do we need the innovation? For all those demographic changes. We better think about Jewish literacy today, the apathy that some communities are demonstrating towards Israel, a lack of concern. So we need to come up with some real innovative ways to harness our community. So those are 3 centers of excellence I'd love for you to begin to get your head around. Thanks, Joanne. And then you can wonder, okay, well, what am I thinking about goes in each center for talent development? And when we talked this afternoon around the Tikva campaign, what are we looking to invest in? Talent is our #1 priority right now for our movement. I think we have 50 or 60, Dory's not here, new execs by next year's Mifgash that have been doing the job 4 years or less. Some of them are not succeeding in that job. And if the community constantly is onboarding a new exec, we know what happens in any business. We need to, you can look at the objectives, I'm not going to read them to you, but we need to bring back executive development. I'm the last member of EDTP. 14 of us are still sitting execs in this field, and I'm the last class from 2004, 21 years, right? We need to have a lineup for JCCs. Right now, we need to consider our work on executive search. We have, I think, 8 different search firms leading 14 searches across the country. They all want a commission, and no one's sharing names. No one's saying this job didn't work out for you, but I would love to put you over here, because they're holding on to those names. That's not the kind of work. We need to think about how we'll partner with somebody or bring that work back internal. But executive development, C-suite support, developing middle management training programs so people see a pipeline. Look, these salaries are not always the most generous at the entry level. And I remember when I was interviewed by, if you remember, people know a name, Helene Strauss or Joel Block. I interviewed them at 23 years old for $18,500. And they said, where do you want to be in 10 years? I go, based on that salary, I want your job. Right? Young people need to see a path to executive leadership. If it happens in the corporate world that you join a company and get into their management program, why wouldn't we follow the same methodology that you could be a real social entrepreneur in this work. You could be very business-oriented and sophisticated. How do we get people to think about running Jewish community centers from a social impact? We need to really think about our whole entire talent strategy and where we're going to lean in. And I will tell you, from the middle management to executive level, if these organizations are not running effectively and they're really running in a place of scarcity, it's hard to advance your community, get lay leaders excited to join your board, and really get great staff to join you. So that's the Center for Talent Development. And you can see the stuff we have in there, but more to come. The Center for Jewish Peoplehood. This needs to embody that value that we're all responsible for each other. And the programs that I can imagine that just go under this Center for Jewish Peoplehood, what better than the work of JCC Maccabi? Connecting kids, coaches, communities, volunteers to feeling like they're unified and working in one community. The work of the Center for Israel Engagement under Leah's leadership is all about peoplehood, right? We mentioned the JCC Global. I put it up there because it's part of who we are. If it's the Mandel Center for Jewish Excellence, what's the highest and best use of our work right now? Those of you that might know me a little better than others know I'm very deeply interested in Jewish family engagement, especially for families with young kids from like 2 to 7. How do we create proud young Jewish families so they see seen in the community, and then they evolve that into their middle school and teen programming? The JWB, I don't think the country really understands what we do there to support 42,000 people trying to have Jewish community, and that's the foundation of who we are. And some people said, should that be spun off? Should that be something separate? That's part of our Zachor, our history of why we're here, was the work of the JWB. So this would be a center for peoplehood that really becomes really the ecosystem, the center that when people are calling us, other JFNA, Hillel, others are looking to partner, this center will really hold those kind of peoplehood projects. And a lot of them are coming our way, but we're going to have to figure out which one's worth the squeeze, where do we lean in, and where helps us to secure early wins. The third center is, I would say, if I was going to say, and I often ask a board chair, and Lisa, I don't think I've put you on the spot yet, but I will in a year. What do you want your legacy to be, right? It's an incredible thing when you're a chair of the board to think about what happened on your watch and legacy. David has an incredible cemented legacy for this institution, shepherding 3 execs over 4 years, right? And if anything, I need to clap for that. So, yeah. But if I was going to have a legacy, Steve, you had a couple too. 4 and 4? So I would say the Center for Innovation of Impact, this needs to be our wow factor. This needs to be something that is so dynamic around Jewish social impact that does to me 3 things. And it's a dream, and I think we'll get there. One is, how do we scale what's already working in the field extremely professionally, really professionally? If we have a great product, I don't know, it's a $200,000 product in Chicago, why are we not looking for $5 million to scale that in 20 other communities? But which products do we scale and why? Not just because they make money. Does it help our strategic priorities of what we're trying to do and answer what problem are we trying to answer today in Jewish life? So if it's about young families feeling connected, then who are the Jays doing that programming? If we're worried about the relationship with Israel, who's doing that work? So I would just say that this will be the center that has to evaluate. It's, when you start scaling, those of you who have done this in business know, you're merging cultures. You're looking at different types of budgets and how you do it and creating communities of practice. How do we also reward that home community for all their job descriptions and stuff? Maybe they should be rewarded for their intelligence and success. The other thing around the Center for Innovation and Impact is when outside people want to partner with us, we need to have some kind of mechanism to truly evaluate if it's worth the squeeze. Are we getting our overhead, right? I have a little joke lately that everyone's calling me, writing me an email about the next Hava Nashira baby program that's going to revolutionize Jewish parenting. They're beautiful emails, but what's the right program? Which ones do we scale with? If we're going to put it on our platform and distribute it out to the Jewish world, which ones make sense? Is it worth the squeeze? Is the money just seed money, or is it in perpetuity? This Center for Innovation and Impact needs to be seen by the Jewish world as a gift. So they want to fund us because we have the market. No one argues that we're the largest daily engager of Jews and community. No one argues that we're the largest employer. No one argues that we're the largest volunteer platform. We haven't always been easy to work with, and that just needs to be named. And so how we show up professionally and how people come to us to want to partner, we have incredible professionals here. They need more depth. Not they as people need depth. They need more team under them to do this type of evaluation work. And then my other probably big dream around the Center for Innovation Impact is, can you imagine in 3 years, if you play a little Willy Wonka with me, that the Jewish world gets 50 golden tickets to get invited to our innovation think tank. That people get a golden ticket, be it operators, funders, head of Jewish giving, JCC execs, because the funders meet and talk about things, but sometimes they don't do it in the room with any operators, and they come up with ideas that are just not, you can't implement them. And then the operators sometimes look at things and they're just too tactical. How can people see JCC Association of North America as really like getting that Willy Wonka golden ticket and you're being invited into our space now? We need to be proud and strong. And I have this vision that once we formalize what we're doing in a couple of years, we can really say that we're not begging to get into the room. People should be begging to get into our room, okay? They should be asking to come into our room because of the impact and engagement that we're demonstrating. So the next big idea, and I'm almost done. So 3 centers of excellence, you got it, you'll think about it, you'll talk about it, and see where this sits with you. I believe in regionalism. It's just something I believe in. I grew up in Nifty. I was on regional board. I went to regional conferences. I told you I worked at the Suffolk Y in 1994, and I was sent up to the Catskills to Concord for the Mort Goldman Regional Conference. Surprise, I was the last one into the room. There was an empty chair at the front of the table. They said, go sit there. The guy next to me starts peppering me with questions at my first regional conference. I said, this guy's in my ear. There's too many questions. And someone came up to the podium. They said, what an honor to have the new CEO, only on the month, 3 months on the job, Alan Finkelstein. And Alan got up next to me. And that started a career at a regional conference that was affordable. And I met Alan, and Alan helped to put me on a path here. I think the regionalism idea has a lot of merit. We saw what happened after the pandemic. Our regions mobilized without us. I'm a proud member of the Mid-Atlantic region. Scott and his team does a great job in the Southeast. I was just at the Pacific Northwest Regional Conference. How can we formalize these regions across the country that maybe have regional boards? I've said this to some people. Maybe the presidents of those regions are the board execs. So they're representing a region in this country when we're at meetings. When there's a new exec into that community, that region takes responsibility to hold on to that new exec in that new community. Think about the lay leadership development that we can do in a regional model. But going back to the Center of Talent Development for a moment, it's not just professionals, it's lay leaders. Imagine a kivunim for lay leaders. Every new board chair needs to feel our support, and they can't just wait to J Summit. If they meet and they have a good time, then the following year they'll say, I'll see you at J Summit. We need to invest in our lay leaders in their own monthly cohorts, and that can be done regionally as well. So the regional approach to me is, how will we service this country? We had some problems I've heard in the past about, I never really had that personal concern about the regional consultants model. And one thing I've been thinking about, again, going back to my youth movement days, maybe it was the word, consultants, and there was an expectation that this person knew everything. But in youth movements, we call them regional advisors. They're there to advise us and connect us, and I think we need to bring back regional advisors to support regions. Maybe they're part-time, maybe they're half-time, we'll figure all that out. But just think about this, how we can build dynamic clusters across the country. But also execs don't sometimes want to be just pigeonholed into their region. They want to meet the country, and they want to meet other execs. So some of you know what YPO is, young professional. Why are we not copying some of these best practices that they do in the corporate world right into our own work, where execs can learn from each other? Maybe it's around a theme, a topic of the year, et cetera. So that's a new regional approach to foster stronger connection and learning. The next slide. I am very confident that between the stakeholder model, our Tikva campaign, and the larger funder world, we will have the manna coming in from heaven to do this incredible work that the Jewish community is counting on us. But from my vantage point, it has to be done in a business model. I've said to Jay, it's got to be a business model where we understand how we're releasing cash, where we're investing, how we're measuring it. And just like any good business, it needs to be evaluated quarterly and annually, so we're making sure we have a fiduciary responsibility to the work we're doing. We need to leverage fundraising opportunities I think people are curious. Jen keeps on doing a wonderful job saying, he's coming, just be patient. And, probably the New Yorker in me is, I feel like I'm not doing my job unless I ask. And I was taught early by a board chair, says, it's your responsibility to ask. And when you're the CEO, you can say, I'm not doing my job unless I ask, is this something you want to join us at this moment? And then I want to rebuild the endowment for future investment. I believe in life and legacy. Just 2 months ago, a $300,000 check fell into the JCC from someone who put into their own estate in 1980, and I was trying to close a project. How great it was for an exec to get a $300,000 check on their desk. And so how do we think about life and legacy? How do we think about our endowments to make sure it has the resources? Everything we do, with the field, with all of you, we have to be known by these 3 values. I could say professional, best in class, returning emails within 24 hours, all those things, but that's about respect. And it's about intention, and it's about community. Everything we do has to be seen as deeply strategic and deeply intentional. That we know what we're doing, why we're doing it. Someone gets excited about an idea that doesn't make sense to our strategic priorities. I don't care if it's 7 figures, or even does it make sense for us right now? Does it fit our intentions at this moment? So we put this image on the May 1st call when I spoke to our movement with about 150 people on the call, that I want to work with all of you that the JCC Association is not on top. It's an ecosystem that we're constantly being a catalyst, a champion, a curator, and a coordinator for better outcomes across the movement. That means we also need to just deeply invest in our storytelling. Our kids are sitting on the beach, those of us who have 20-year-olds, and they're watching these reels, and they're watching these videos. How do we become interesting to them? How are they seeing Jewish life, right? They're on all the platforms. We need to really up our game. And it's not any disrespect to the work that we're doing today, but we have to get in touch with how we're talking to those 20-somethings about Jewish life. And we got to hit the platforms that they're on, and we got to tell the right stories. So we have to build a home. And in December, David called me and said, hey, I know you're a finalist, but I want to tell you there's we're going to move to the 12th floor, save a lot of money. And I was kind of not happy about it at first. I said, how do we know we should be in New York? Maybe it should be DC. Maybe it should be somewhere else. Why are we committing to physical space without a business plan and a talent philosophy? Well, the train had left the station for all the right reasons. There was a fiduciary opportunity. There was a willing owner of this building that has named a JCC who wanted the JCC Association to stay. Jen gave me all the reasons, and as Jen does with her persuasive personality, I said, okay, it's going to be my problem. And then I realized, like anything, once you let the problem sit with you, where does it become an opportunity? And I think Michael sent me a note back in February and said, can you please sign off on a final drawing? I think we're up to like 15. And the architects are going to start to bill us every day unless you agree to a plan. And I was like 2 in the morning. I've done enough construction in my career. I took out highlighters, and I said, we got to flip this thing on its head. We don't need national offices. People can work out of WeWork spaces, right? Why do we need a home? And to not call it our offices anymore, but to call it, and we'll come up with a better word, a dynamic merkaz, a training center, the center of our movement. And everything that's green, we just took. There were conference rooms all over the floor, and those of you that will come with me upstairs, you'll see. Everything green will be a training center for our movement. The Marantine Fellows, the Marvin Pear Fellows, the SEDEC Fellows, executive Kivunim groups. We spend a lot of money on travel, sending one person out. But if we can somehow, through funding, bring them here, they get the whole team. It just, pure economics to me felt like if we could turn our space into something that people felt contemporary, exciting, relevant, and we do not. I hope this does not offend anybody. This is not going to be white walls and gray carpeting. It's not just to look like a new modern doctor's office. This needs to be seen as warm and dynamic and exhilarating. And I will tell you, this has been one of my selling pieces to the New York execs. Because for those 22 JCCs that can get within 10 to 20 miles of this place, This becomes incredibly added bonus for them and their teams. And I think almost more than 50% of the JCCs are within 3 hours of this office. So to come do work. I will convince my West Coast colleagues that it'll be worth to bring their teams here too. But I should say that any new exec, if you're a new exec in California, coming here with your senior management team for a day and a half will be the smartest move you'll make in the first 6 months of your job, because you'll feel connected by our movement. So these are our offices. We'll take you upstairs. And here's a video that I think Joanne put together. And this is the reception area. There'll be brand new conference rooms and training centers. You'll see in a second. There's going to be a big pantry and a bar for breakfast and afternoon happy hours that after training day, so people want to spend time here. Really, really exciting. Lots of collaboration areas, so people are meeting and working together and talking to each other and not being in offices. You can see the colors. Joanne's had a field day on color. We've really empowered the architects to make this legacy institution get an award for modernization. So you can see just the color palette. But that's our new movement hub. This is an incredible moment for this organization. I need you to think about how you want to believe. How are we going to behave and show up, both professionally and lay? How do we ensure that every Jew or anybody that's in contact with us feels that they belong to the Jewish community or part of our Jewish community? These words of believe, behave, and belong are not mine. They actually came from Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, who some say wrote the book Judaism as a Civilization, that synagogues had to go beyond ritual and prayer and to make it part of everyday life. And that's why some of the conservative synagogues got pools. It was the shul with the pool. And you see some conservative synagogues call themselves Jewish centers, because Mordechai Kaplan was a conservative rabbi, and some say the father of Reconstructionist Judaism. But I've always resonated for me that we have 3 B's that I'm trying to impose upon my own family, my own community. Why should they believe in being Jewish? What does it mean to behave as a Jew? And what does it mean to feel like you belong as a Jew? And that means that you're responsible for each other. This is a major moment, obviously for me personally, and for this movement to take our claim and our moment, because the Jewish world needs us, not just the JCCs. The Jewish world needs us to modernize and make sure that every Jew feels seen, no matter how they choose to create a family for themselves. And so I believe when you enter these moments of monumental change and decision-making, it's a Shechianu moment, right? We begin the holidays, the Chagim, with the Shechianu to thank God for bringing us to this point, that we wake up and we can do this work. We say it at Hanukkah on the first night. So I did put through a text my friend Bill Kaplan on the spot as one of our rabbis, one of our movement leaders, to really close out this presentation. And then we'll talk about what will be next, that this is a Shechianu moment. Think about your responsibility and why you showed up in this room. Think about your responsibility in your own local Jewish communities. I also want you to think about your own family and what JCCs and what you want your family to look like 40 years from now, when I'm 90-something, 40 years from now. When I'm 90-something, how are my grandkids where are they gonna feel welcomed and seen? No matter what they choose to do with their Jewish life and who they choose to marry, right? So, Bill, if you wouldn't mind, if you want.
I'm a camp guy. Everybody stand up. Stretch for a moment. We've been standing here for a long time, and put your, just lean over to your neighbor here, and you're gonna have to sing with me because I'm too deaf. I'm not a cancer, I'm a rabbi. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lezman hazeh. Amen. Yesher koach Barak.
Thank you. This blessing for all of us captures what I feel today. profound gratitude for the opportunity and the trust to lead this organization, an appreciation for the legacy we all inherit, and excitement for the journey ahead. Let's write this chapter for JCC together. Thanks.
As I've been talking about, I've been part and party along with Lisi and Jan, we've been hearing some of the stuff coming out. And every time we go, we're peeling back the onion a little bit deeper, cutting a deeper slice, learning more. And, it's just so powerful of the feeling that we all have, and just proud of all of you for embracing what Barak is saying. From a personal standpoint of what I hear, for me, a couple of things that point out, Barak talks about the 3 centers of excellence. But, I grew up, I'm the JCC brat, so I grew up in everything and then got into fundraising. And I would always say, the thing that I love most about JCCs is that we have so many touch points of what we do. And then I would say on the fundraising side, the thing that's the most difficult part of it, what it is that we have so many touch points and that we can't. So what for me, Barak's thing of these 3 centers of excellence in terms of talent, Jewish peoplehood, and impact, he simplifies it, he clarifies it, and I was just really inspired by that thing. And then he was putting up the things of these, behave, and, believe, and, which comes back from my days in our business, because our business was cleaning supplies and all that, but we were known as Waxy Sanitary Supply, all right? And our logo was that of a bee. And to my friend Susan Saul as well, who her husband was telling us a story last night about the ultimate beekeeper that her husband is, and he grows honey and all that, which is wonderful in itself for a Jewish individual to be involved with beekeeping, but in itself. But the one thing that we always did in our own slogans of everything is, once again, we added the extra letter on B. So it's B with the B, the Waxy logo, leave, behave, be kind, behavior. So another thing that adds into it. And you guys are welcome to steal the B.